To Wealth on the Rocks. This episode we got here, David. Welcome to the show here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see here. Well, I wrote a book, so you can read it all in there. No, I'm just kidding. So, just to kind of compress it all down, I'm a 54-year-old grandfather. I own newspapers. I am a business coach, a career coach, a health coach at times. I have done podcasts. I've written a book. So really, I guess you could say I'm a kaleidoscope of things. Whatever it is you need, I'm probably your guy. And so, I've always had the entrepreneur gene in me. I always want to try something new. I tell people I have Project ADD. I want to do something and then go do something else. And that's me in a nutshell. Is just whatever is in business, it just fascinates me. And it doesn't matter if it's financial services or real estate or media or whatever. I get fascinated by the business of business. And so I've had a blast all these years of my life, and I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. And so I try to help other people avoid some of the potholes of life that we all seem to find ourselves in at times. So that's pretty much who I am. I mean, you can Google me and find out all the nasty details, but that's essentially who I am and what I do.
I love that. And by the way, we got some nice bourbon over here. We got some Bardstown Discovery Series number 10, which is pretty good. It's 114 proof, which I feel like it's going to be really nice. I've had this a little bit ago, but it's pretty nice. I think it's a weeded bourbon. Yeah, I love that how they do these Discovery Series. I don't know if you've seen any of these, but Bardstown does a lot of these different just blends, and so you can kind of see here on the side they have different bourbons and stuff that they mix together and just kind of come up with their own blends. And they call them Discovery Series. I know they have one that's they have it in barrels of beer and stuff, and so they have a couple different really cool ones. But so Nashville, everything. What brought you to Nashville? Cheers, by the way.
Oh, cheers! And I'm glad this isn't like Hot Ones, because if we did another one, like I said,
we do.
I'd be Ubering out of here. So, what brought me to Nashville? That's a good question, because the condensed version is I was wanting to seek greater opportunity.
Okay.
I had a business coach that lived near here, been here several times for various functions. I come from Louisiana, which economically is in its own challenges, and he just made the off-the-cuff comment. He's from Murfreesboro, and he's like, look, if you're looking to move, Murfreesboro's a great town. It's got low crime, and it just, something stuck.
Yeah.
And so I went back home to Louisiana, and I talked to my wife. We come back up here 3 months later. She falls in love with it. We bring our kids up who have families of their own. My oldest son is 29. My youngest is 27. I have a now 4-year-old grandson.
Yeah.
And they were like, now's the time. So we picked up the entire family.
Yeah.
And moved here back at the beginning of 2022.
Oh my goodness! Okay.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that long then.
No.
Okay.
One of the cool things, I said I own newspapers.
Yeah.
That's not as glamorous as it sounds, folks. But what I learned was through COVID that we could remote manage and we could remote work, and a lot of my employees wanted to remote work. So instead of having meetings in a building, now we're meeting via Zoom, and then I go back down every so often. So the decision to move was a lot easier to make because we had this technology, and now we had struck this culture of being able to work from home and work in business and do it all. So it just all really kind of came together at the right moment.
I love that. How do you think it's the whole, because you mentioned something interesting. I feel like for the last 4 years, I guess it's been since COVID. It feels like it was yesterday. Everybody that was working in industries that was primarily in-person dominated now has shifted over to just solely remote. And I feel like it was one of those things, like every corporate company had like all these buildings, and now buildings are empty and like people are working from home. how do you think that's affected your business?
Well, I'm in a small market, so it wasn't like we had a server farm or a cubicle farm anywhere. But we are utilizing about 10% of our facilities company-wide.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has definitely, caused a little bit of a hiccup or a hit. Now, when you own real estate, you have an asset. You can utilize that asset for other things. What we have seen in our small downtowns is a lot of these old smaller downtown buildings that are 2 to 3 stories, they'll have a business on the bottom or an office.
Okay.
And then the upper floors they're now converting to loft apartments or Airbnbs, and so
you get creative.
Yeah, so there's those opportunities if you're willing to look for them. I think my biggest challenge in the last 4 years has been, how do I manage but keep the personal touch? Because I'm sorry, and those of you watching, those of you listening, it's not the same as being here in the room.
Right.
And you and I saw this firsthand at a conference last month.
Absolutely.
We could be on mastermind Zooms left and right and man, I'm getting good stuff out of it. But there's nothing like the atmosphere of being in a room with other human beings, interacting. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert, it doesn't matter. I'm a partial introvert, so I'm a wallflower until somebody talks to me.
Sure.
But there's still that whole aspect of being together. And so I think in a lot of ways we have lost our human touch.
Yeah.
We're more connected than we ever been, but we've lost the connection.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're all navigating that.
Yeah.
In my business of the newspaper, what we have found too is like there's this whole disconnect in information. Because now it's like you can't trust anything. Everybody has an opinion. Social media, we talked about the cesspool of opinions. And what we have found is like people can watch their city council meeting on YouTube.
Sure.
So can our reporters. And now it's like, hey, no, you need to go to the city council meeting, not watch it on YouTube and then write the story from it. And then let's not even start talking about AI and how that's affected everything. So it's just been, I think the season of pivot is not over yet, and it may never be over. And so if you can't pivot, you're going to be out of business. You're going to be out of a job. You're going to be because you have to be able to not just go with the flow, but make the right turns at the right time. Yeah. Some people, I said, let's not even go to AI, but the people who are not scared of it are the ones that are going to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think in what you said about the physical touch and human connection, I feel like that's something that, for example, in my industry in finance, it used to be everything in person, right? And like the human connection, I feel like it's a little bit lost. However, I feel like it definitely has expanded the opportunity, right, for people that otherwise you wouldn't have made connections to, and like maybe you would have to take in a flight and meet somebody, now you can meet over Zoom and things like that. And then I feel like for training individuals too, like if you have a team of individuals, you can train them a lot faster and things like that. But I do agree, like there's gotta be maybe something chemical about the whole like interactions with people, because I feel like every time I go to some of those big events, because that's, by the way, that's how we met at this big event. A big event. And so I feel like those are the opportunities where you get to really build true friendships and connections, more so than just over the Zoom era. But it definitely has helped quite a bit in business. But we got over here, by the way, I don't know if you can see this, but this is your book. So when did you write this book? What is it all about? Tell me all about it.
Okay, well,
got this over here.
And I say long story short a lot because I tell long stories, right?
Sure.
But originally that book was written in 2015.
Okay.
For the wrong reasons.
Okay.
I was following. I had gotten into the personal development space in my head.
Sure.
As a result of learning things, right? You learn stuff, you want to share it, what you've learned, etc. And so I had come across a fella who was like, look, if you write a blog, you could take those blog posts and turn them into a book and make lots of money.
Sure.
And guy standing in front of the Lambo, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I was like, I've been writing a blog for a while, so I just organized a bunch of blog posts and
put it all together.
It was awful. I mean, it was bad.
Yep.
It was bad.
Yep.
So I put that on the shelf. I mean, I think other than my mother, I may have sold 4 copies, you know. And so I was like, so COVID hits 5 years later, and everything's changing. And I have now gone from age 46 to age, what would it be, 2020, so age 51. So
Okay.
in that time period, I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot. And I started seeing people that were like me, struggling with all the change around them. And I saw people younger than me not wanting to listen to people like me because there's this disconnect between generations. And so I said, man, and I had a coach, a mentor, that I had told him about the book that I had written, and he goes, well, let me read it. And I'm like, oh, no. But I sent it to him, and he sent it back, and he said, David, yes, it's all over the place, but there's some nuggets of wisdom in here that the world needs to hear.
Okay.
And he said, you need to go back and rewrite this book. So I'm like, okay, here we go, folks. And so what I did was I rewrote every chapter. I organized it again in a more, makes sense kind of way.
Sure.
I incorporated some of the effects or the things that we learned through COVID. Still sharing my story, still sharing the fact that I was a knucklehead in my 20s, still sharing some of my big blunder moments, some of my most favorite, people in my life who influenced me, all with the idea that principles don't change, but methods of delivery and methods of teaching do.
Okay.
So at the end of every chapter, there's five new tricks from the old dog based upon what's in the chapter themselves.
Nice.
And it's really kind of opened the door. And then I got really serious about the marketing of it. As I was writing the end of it, I started, doing my research. I said, look, this thing's got to be a bestseller or nobody's going to care.
Right.
You could have the cure for cancer, and if nobody follows nobody's going to know there's a cure for cancer.
Right.
So I got really serious, really worked my network hard, really asked some really strong people to review it and endorse it if they could. And I'll get to that story here in a second.
Yep.
And so I set out to get an Amazon bestseller.
Okay.
And we were able to get within the top 5 of the Amazon bestsellers for Christian leadership.
That's pretty cool. How does one do that? How do you become... I know there's probably a lot of people that have thought about reading writing a book or getting into the space. Like, how does one do that?
The beauty of Amazon is that they update their lists every 15 minutes or so. So you don't have to be up there for long.
Okay.
To get the long. So what I did is I created a launch day offer.
Okay.
If you do this, this, and this, if you buy it on launch day, here's what you get from me. And I stacked the offer so well that, and of course I called in, like I said, I called in favors. Hey guys, I'd like you to buy my book. And so in that one day, I shot up to, I think we ended up at number 4.
Okay. Wow.
Again, we were only number 4 for about 6 hours.
Sure.
But that's enough to consider yourself an Amazon bestseller.
Wow.
And so, and I've helped other people, follow this process to get there. And what it does for me is, now I can sell the book outright. I've already done the Amazon thing.
Sure.
I can just, help people, and it gets me into rooms that I would not otherwise be in.
Yeah.
When you're saying, oh, he's a best-selling author. Oh, well, then I want him on my show, or I want him in here. I want him to speak from stage, or I'll give him the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, what I had a friend of mine say, David, you got to decide what you want to do with this thing. And I said, well, I want to write a book. He said, no. It's not a book. He said, it's a system. It's a method. It's a business card.
Okay.
He said, treat it like a business card on steroids. And I said, okay, so what do you do with a business card on steroids? You're like, okay, you want them to know about you.
Yeah.
You want to weed out the people that aren't your people. And you want to bring enough proof of concept or proof of ability for people to take you seriously. So that's why I reached out. So some of the endorsements on here are the president of the University of Louisiana System. One of them is Coach Michael Bird, who
Sure.
you saw.
Yep.
One of them is Representative Mike Johnson,
Okay.
who is now Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Nice.
He and I knew each other. My newspapers are in his congressional district.
Nice.
He endorsed it long before he ascended the reins. And again, this is not about the politics.
Sure.
This is about the validity of the content.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like when you go to that website of that guru, and everybody, if this is to entrepreneurs, you know, you've seen the guru websites, and it's like as seen on, and they got like CNN and Forbes.
Everything. Yeah.
You know, why? Because that brings credibility to
Yep.
the process.
Yep.
Now, being on CNN may say that their name was mentioned on the website, but it's still, that's part of the marketing. And this is really a marketing tool.
Yeah.
It has a tremendous amount of value in it, but then it also has that opportunity to go deeper and say, hey, would you like David to coach you, or would you like to be part of his coaching community, or would you like to go into a mastermind scenario? This is the business card on steroids.
Yep.
But like any good business card, it's either going to end up in your Rolodex or in the trash.
Yeah.
And so there's enough value in here that I believe will have it be in the Rolodex.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot easier to throw a business card than it is to actually throw a book, you know.
Yeah.
No, but I have seen people that use this method on Instagram where you write a book and you give away the book for free, and then you have people funnel through to your page or whatever your service is. I know in the coaching space it's very popular, and the sales world, I mean insurance, there's a lot of people that are doing this to sort of funnel people through their services. But I know you speak about coaching, so tell me about that. What do you do on that space and coaching and training?
Well, so long story short.
Sure. we got time.
so here's two things that got me into the coaching space. Number one, at the age of 49, I decided that enough was enough. I was 325 pounds.
Okay.
My wife decided to get on a health program. I decided to join her to quote unquote hold her accountable, even though I knew I needed it as much as she did. And over the course of the next 6 months, I lost 120 pounds.
Wow.
And have kept it off for the last 5 years.
It's impressive.
Part of that ecosystem was coaching.
Okay.
Because once the weight started coming off, people said, "Hey, David, what are you doing?" And I was part of a company, network marketing in the weight loss health space.
Sure.
That I began to help other people lose weight. What we were learning, the same things you learn in personal development apply to the health journey. You know,
Sure.
Triggers, habits, the whole 9 yards. Getting your headspace right so that you could, getting your mind ready for what your body's about to do. The whole 9 yards. And so I kept finding myself in this space. And so we were helping other people, and like I was helping all my friends and family, the ones that would listen to you and not ridicule you.
Sure.
I had a buddy of mine who was my editor for years lose over 100 pounds and has kept it off for most of that time. And so this was bringing a great deal of satisfaction. Anytime that a life is transformed, there's this huge rush. When somebody says, "David, you literally saved my life," there's this huge rush. But I knew that my expertise, I'm not a nutritionist. I am not a doctor,
Sure.
So what I know, I can coach a system. I was coaching this system that worked. But, if you said, "Hey, David, can you give me the nuts and bolts of this?" I said, "I can go about this deep. If you want to get this deep, I'm not your man."
Sure.
So when I began to look at that, I started looking more and saying, well, what else do I know about? I told you I'm a kaleidoscope. What other experiences? And obviously in the business space, I was an entrepreneur before the name was cool. Meaning within the confines of our newspaper, and I told you my dad was a huge influence on my life.
Yeah.
And he let me spread and try things. So like back in the 90s, we had a newspaper website before newspapers our size even considered websites.
Wow. We
would actually start an arm of the company that would build websites because we're like, hey, if we know how to do it, somebody else might need a website. And so we would try that. And so I never had this fear of trying a new business.
Sure.
And I learned a lot from the fails, right? We learn a lot in the fails.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, how can this translate to helping other people?
Sure.
And so what I came into, I actually connected with somebody a little over a year ago who was in career coaching.
Okay.
She had started a career coaching company, but she came from the corporate background. So she has this, and she's also in government relations. Her name's Cicely Simpson. She's got a best-selling book, Pull Up Your Chair. I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
Anyway, she and I connected at an event, go figure.
Yep.
And we started talking, and she's like, look, I have this corporate and government background, but you have this small business entrepreneur background. And what we found was our principles that we've learned and that we like sharing were the same.
Yeah.
We just had a different approach or a different set of experiences to bring to the table.
Sure.
So we complemented each other. She could speak to the navigating the toxic boss, navigating a corporate structure that how do you set a goal and reach it when you're working within a corporation, as opposed to me who's like set a goal and reach it.
Sure.
Because it's all on your shoulders because you're building the business.
Yeah.
So we really complemented each other and began building this community where we literally every morning we train on building your career. It's a whole encapsulated community, and then we do one-on-one coaching. It's just, again, back to the whole rush of helping somebody transform their lives.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like scared to death. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I say the wrong thing, I'm gonna lead this person down the primrose path, and they're gonna get fired.
Sure.
But when I began to coach.
Yeah.
And I began to see the parallels to my own life experiences, and I began to share, say, based on what you've told me, this is what I see. And then they come back to me and say, man, the insight you gave me prior to the meeting I went to, or the insight you gave me, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to sit and listen. Yeah. Connect the dots for people.
I love that.
And then help them see the dots. Yeah. Because, get back to I told people that I'm stealing Coach Burt's phrase from the title of my second book, and that is, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame.
Ooh, I love that. And I feel like there's a lot of people nowadays in that coaching space as well. How do you think that sort of, because I know there's probably people out here thinking like, hey, I need a coach, right? Or I've seen the ads on Instagram, right? Yeah. That like there's a guy on a Lamborghini. I mean,
join me on my private jet, and he ain't got no private jet.
Yeah. There's so many gurus and so much BS to be frank. I mean, there's so much stuff that is not helpful to anybody, and it's just fluff. So how does one navigate the waters and figure out, okay, what's the best coaching for me, or what's the differences that having a coach or not having a coach can make a difference on your career?
So I have a methodology that I like to share with people. And number one, if the person is talking more than listening, they're not your person.
Okay.
Because we all have, I see you where you are today, but I have no idea how you got here.
Okay.
Your past, which affects your worldview, like how you see everything around you.
Yeah, everything.
I don't know that. So if I'm not asking the right questions, I'm not getting any insight into your life, and I can't really help you. If I'm offering you solutions, I don't know what the problem is until I ask the right questions. But I will say this: there are three circles. Imagine three circles here in the air. In the top circle, there's a coach. In the middle circle, there's a structure or a system. And in the third circle, there are habits.
Okay.
The point is that you want to build habits that serve you. I said something on a reel today. I said, mastering the mundane.
Yeah.
The little things that move you forward.
It really is, yeah.
Okay? But what moves you forward is located in that system or that structure. But it's up to the coach to help guide you through that structure. I can't do the work for you, but I can show you what in the structure you're missing and help you figure that out. But it's up to you to take the action.
The action, yeah.
But this is what the cool part is. Early on, you need the coach a lot.
Yeah.
You may need him every day. You may need him to say, hey, talk me off the ledge. I'm about to go kill somebody, or I might go eat a donut, or
sure.
whatever. and they can help you, recenter back.
Work through it.
Remember what we talked about, or remember what you told me you wanted.
Accountability. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But as you go and you grow,
Yeah.
and you build the habits down at the bottom, the less you need the coach at the top. And that's really where I want to go. It's like having a therapist for 18 years. It's like, look, if you still need me every day of your life, on speed dial after 12 months, there's something not right. You're not moving forward, or I'm not serving you well.
Right.
I'm kind of a Star Wars geek.
Okay.
So this for all you Star Wars geeks out there, the coach is Yoda, not Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker's the hero of the story. Right. You're the hero. The actions you take make you the hero. It's my job to be Yoda and show you how to be the hero.
Wow. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like I got a bunch of friends too. There are Star Wars geeks. I'm thinking about this too. But I feel like sometimes people too see the highlight reel, right? Like the system leads to the habits can change who you are. And a lot of times, especially in the online world that we live in too, like people see the highlight reel, I call it, right? But there's a whole weep of challenges that go with it, right? I mean, what you were talking about reminds me of a book, Atomic Habits. Have you read Atomic Habits?
Yes, it's great.
Amazing book, Atomic Habits. If you haven't read that, it definitely speaks to how we're creatures of habit, right? And how just implementing the right things can have a drastic effect on who you are. But going back to the fluff and the everything else, like at some point you've had to overcome certain challenges in your life to get to where you are. Mm-hmm. All of us have. I know you have a military background as well. Mm-hmm. Talk through us about that. Like how does that shaped your career? I know we have an amazing military community out there as well. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of the military community as well. How does that shape who you are today, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced along the way to get to where you are?
Well, gosh, that's a very deep question.
Tough. Yeah.
So you have to understand something about my military service, and that is I didn't get it right most of the time.
Yeah.
So
what branch were you?
I was Air Force.
Okay.
And I was Air Force because I heard they had the easiest basic training. So that kind of tells you my mindset going in.
Sure.
6 weeks versus 8 weeks, the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
So, and of course, you don't have any idea what any of the career fields mean. You're looking at this sheet and you're like, yeah. And you start poking. So I really didn't go in going, okay, sure. This is the next best thing for me.
Yeah.
I did it because I was not college material. I went to college. I didn't go to class. Again, you see me as like the guy who wrote the book, but I was like the screw up who didn't know what he wanted, had no direction, and my buddy who was still in high school was like, I'm joining the Air Force, why don't you join with me? And I'm like, okay, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, that being said,
sure.
being taken out of my parents' home, being required, I mean, it was, you don't think of it as a ease in, but it really is an ease into self-reliance, because you start off in basic, and they control all of your movements, all of your actions. They they tell you when to get up, when to go down, when to eat, when to not. Run here, run there, march here, march there, do this. They build a routine in you.
Yeah.
And then the next step at your tech school, you're given a little bit more freedom. And you're now responsible to do your homework. You're now responsible to do this. And then you go to your permanent duty station, and now you're self-reliant. You're staying in the dormitory. If you're married, you're staying in base housing. You have to be to work on time. You have to do this. And so all of that to a 19-year-old is a heck of a lot of growth in a short amount of period of time. Did I get it all right? No. Did I get in trouble a lot? Yes. But when the first Gulf War hit and we got deployed, I got deployed 2 months after I was married.
Wow. Where to?
Diego Garcia. I worked on B-52 bombers.
Wow.
And they flew 24-hour missions over Baghdad.
What were you doing there?
I was a maintainer, so I did instruments and autopilot. Any of the gauges you saw in the cockpit, I was responsible for.
Wow.
The autopilot system, I was responsible for.
Yeah.
And for every gauge, there's a sensor somewhere out on the edge
Sure.
of that aircraft, whether it's
Yeah.
on an engine or up in the tail or whatever. So I snaked into a lot of places on that B-52.
Yep.
But what I found was, all of a sudden, what we did mattered. We had been flying training missions. We had been doing, maintaining these 50-plus-year-old aircraft. And all of a sudden, they were going into war.
Yeah.
And they were coming back. And I mean, it got really real.
I was gonna say, yeah, very quickly.
And something changed in me.
Wow.
That said, okay, it's time. For lack of a better term, it's time to get my crap together.
Sure.
Now, did I have it all together? Again, life is not a straight line. You can't just make
Right.
this decision, hey, I'm going to get it together, and then it's smooth sailing from that point forward. I've learned a lot. I even posted on Facebook yesterday, and somebody said, it was a meme that said, what is the dumbest thing you've ever done in your life? And I said, awful bold of you to think I've peaked. I still have a propensity to make stupid decisions. We all do.
Yeah.
But I believe that growth is when there's fewer stupid decisions and there's more consideration before you make a decision.
Yeah.
And so all of that really gave me an affinity for the military service and veterans by and large, because they did have to, some of them had to grow up faster than they wanted to.
Yeah.
Some of them have been affected by what they've experienced. My brother-in-law is one. He was a medic, and so he saw some horrific things.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's that they deal with as well. But the thing is, if I hire a veteran, they're going to show up on time. They're going to do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to pitch in to get the job done.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, there's nobody better, in my opinion, to hire.
Yeah.
If you're needing to get if you need to get the ball moved down the field in a relatively short manner.
Absolutely.
Now, that being said, doesn't mean that veterans have it all together either. Most of us don't.
Yeah.
But I believe that there is so much that they have to offer.
Yeah.
Even to the rest of us.
Yeah.
Again, I only did 3.5 years. I'm not like a lifer that
Sure.
that was there. So I'm still learning to this day. As long as we're open to learning, as long as we're open, one of the things that has really changed in my life, especially in the last 4 years, is allowing myself to be open to the worldview of others and not judging them based upon their worldview.
Yeah.
And that's really weird, because if you look at social media, that's not the norm.
Yeah.
But what I've found is, like, if I can talk to somebody who's been through something, then I understand why they see the world the way they do. I can help them navigate that world.
Yeah.
I have a certain set of beliefs, but it's based upon my upbringing, it's based upon my faith, it's based upon my military service, it's based upon so many things. And if that doesn't line up with what they believe, then we have a disconnect. I have to understand why they believe what they believe in order for me to help them solve the problem in their life.
Yeah, I feel like that, honestly, that's so important in every area of life, but that's very important, especially for any entrepreneurs out there, building those relationships. And whenever it comes to people on your team or clients or whoever you're dealing with, having that understanding of not everybody is gonna talk how you talk, not everybody's gonna be how you are, and being able to meet people where they are and being able to be relatable and connect with others, that's such a huge skill to have. You think that came from just years of learning, or just you've been in the entrepreneurial space for a while, right? Like how does that sort of shape you in understanding others and building relationships?
Well, connection's key.
Yeah.
If you don't connect with somebody, then there's no opportunity to do business.
Right.
And doing business may mean being on a podcast together.
Sure.
Again, it's not an exchange of dollars for service or dollars for product.
Yeah.
What I think, probably because I was always a little bit of an oddball, that I was kind of had one foot in both worlds. I played football, but I love comic books.
Okay. That's
and I'm not super deep in either one of them. I'm not like the guy who has arguments about, this
Sure.
is canon, this is not canon. And by saying I played football, I was on the team.
Sure.
So you know what I mean? So I had my foot in both worlds, and I had to navigate how I was being perceived.
Mm.
So back to the story, and you've zoomed with me. You see all the paraphernalia behind me that's Marvel and Star Wars and all that. Imagine that being in a small town newspaper publisher's office, and the mayor comes in, or the owner of the biggest contracting company in town comes in.
Probably not gonna relate.
And they look at your office wall, and they're
Sure.
like, and you see the look, the look.
Yeah.
And
This guy's crazy.
Yeah, or immature.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Yeah, so I would often have to have the conversation with them right off the bat.
Yeah.
If this was all Dallas Cowboys gear, you wouldn't say a word.
Ah, see?
I said, I'm in this office a third of my days.
You have to make it.
So I should be able to have myself surrounded with things that make me happy.
100%.
And when I would explain that to them, that makes sense now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, and this is the coolest thing, I would do networking events via Zoom during COVID, Chamber of Commerce type stuff.
Yeah.
And I had the same backdrop behind me. Again, it was in a different location, but same basic stuff.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people, especially those in the marketing world, because they're kind of creatives anyway.
Yeah.
They're like, "What's that behind you? Oh my gosh, is that a virtual backdrop?" I'm like, "No, that's mine." And I take a helmet off of the shelf, and they're like, "You got the coolest helmet ever! Oh my god!" And they would geek out.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was, icebreakers like that.
Yeah.
On either side of the coin was the opportunity for connection.
Yeah.
I connected with those that were fans,
Yep.
and I connected with those that didn't get it because I had an opportunity to explain
To
it.
talk about it. Yeah. And honestly, too, at the end of the day, in some of those situations, you are who you are, and you don't have to apologize for anything. Like you express yourself the way you want to express. You want to have the things you want to have in your background, and the people that are into those things, you'll make the connections anyway.
Right.
Like you don't have to go out of your way. I feel like sometimes in the entrepreneurial space, especially, I feel like people try to be too broad and appeal to too many things. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but like to try to appeal to the most people. But sometimes I feel like if you have a niche in certain areas, I feel like that's almost more beneficial, right? Like if you have a certain lane that you stick on, and I've heard some people say, a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like if your space is the coaching and whatever else, you have that lane that you can be the number one person doing that. And it reminds me too of, I don't know if you ever heard this term, the Japanese have a term, it's called ikigai, that is for, and don't quote me on this, I might have to look exactly all the things, but it's essentially saying like to find the purpose of what you're supposed to be doing, of something that you are good at and something that you can be the best at, something that serves a purpose to the world, something that can make you money, and it's something along those lines of like where all these circles connect, of finding purpose, finding something that you can be good, something that can make you money, and something that can last, and everything. And I feel like people listening that are I know there's a lot of people trying to figure out what that is. And sometimes it's hard because you can try a lot of different things that you think you may like or you may be good or not good at, but how do you find like what you're good at, what serves your purpose, what fuels that fire? Like how does somebody find that purpose?
Oh, so I'm a believer that in the power of yes.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
So, as I'm looking back on my life, and again, you see me where I am. You're like, okay,
Yep.
Dave's a coach, Dave's an entrepreneur, Dave's etc. Dave talks a lot. Yeah.
It's good. It's always good to.
Yeah. So how did I get here though?
Yeah.
Well, I never spoke in front of a group until I was working at the newspaper and the Lions Club and the Kiwanis Club, and I'll ask to come talk about the newspaper. I became chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, and I had to run meetings, and I had to facilitate things, and I had to navigate a group setting that was of volunteers, not somebody that I held monetary control over.
Sure.
I think that you should say yes, even if it scares you,
Yeah.
until you realize that no is the right answer. So if I'd have said, I could have said no to speaking at the Lions Club. I could have said no to being a children's pastor in a church. By the way, if you want to learn how to public speak, get in front of a bunch of little kids, because they will rake you over the coals.
Especially now, I feel like you get completely annihilated.
Yes. So those yeses
Sure.
led to the place and let me hone some skill, because everybody sucks when they start.
Yeah.
Anything. You sucked riding a bicycle, and you may be in the Tour de France, but you sucked the first time you rode a bicycle.
100%. Yeah.
So don't go by the suck. Go by the, can I develop a skill here, and am I enjoying it as I develop the skill?
Yeah.
It's like video games, right? Every time you play, I was a Halo guy back in the old Xbox days. I played Halo. I was not any good at it. I got sniped all the time. I cannot develop the skill for Halo. So I'm not about to try Call of Duty. I'm not about to try. I tried Fortnite the other day. Again, way too fast.
Impossible.
So I know that that's not my lane.
Sure.
But if I had never tried,
I
wouldn't know that.
Right.
Now I can kick your butt in graphic design on a computer. So it's not a technical skill issue.
Right.
It's just not my skill set.
Right.
But again, you say yes until no becomes the obvious answer.
Yeah.
I can write because I worked in a newspaper. I can all the things. I can listen because I had a very diverse organization. It wasn't all white guys. It was like young people just out of college that were writing for me, all the way to sports editors who were in their 70s. I had to be able to listen and speak to them and lead them at their level. So yeah, I believe that I have found my purpose in coaching.
Yeah.
Because I have allowed myself to say yes to so many different things. And that it's hard.
Just trial and error, huh?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, that when I do these lives every morning, again, if you want to put it in the show notes, it's careergps.online.
Okay.
That's our career coaching community, and
Nice.
sign up. When I go on and it's my day to present, I still get nervous until I first start talking.
Yeah.
Even though I'm prepared, I've made my slide deck. If I'm using a slide deck that day, if I've got my notes down on my second screen next to me, so it doesn't look like I'm reading down from a piece of paper. I'm still nervous. But as soon as I start, and then I'm watching in the chat, and somebody says, "Oh man, I've never heard of it explained that way before," or "I really needed to hear this today," or You do reels and TikToks,
Sure.
when you get that positive feedback, you ignore the negative feedback, but you get that positive feedback, I needed to hear this today.
Sure.
It really does make you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose. And that's really how I got there. So, and I think that applies to any area of life, If you're thinking, hey, I want to help people make more money, you know what? Financial services may be your gig.
Yeah.
And you need to navigate through past your 90 days to figure out if that's what 12 you want to do. Part of me was, it's funny because I was like, I remember going, real estate looks like it's fun. And then I look at Nashville and like everybody and their mama is in real estate. And I'm like, you know what? This is not the yes for me here.
Sure.
Now, if I build the coaching business to the place where I have excess income and I want to get into the real estate investment space, there's my spot.
Yeah.
So that's my yes. Again, figure out your yeses that leads you either to a bigger yes or leads you to no. Either way, you win.
Right, right. And true, like you were saying it takes time. Like I feel like sometimes, and obviously we have a generational gap, but I feel like a lot of the people on the younger side of things have, I don't know if it's entitlement is such a buzzword, but a lot of people don't have the patience that it takes to do certain things. And especially you talk about the yeses, like exploring different things until you find your lane and figuring out, okay, this is what I want to do, and I spend some time dedicating to it, and like it takes. I mean, I think it's something like 10,000. Isn't it 10,000 hours that you have to put to master something? So I feel like a lot of people right now are just kind of nibbling at things. They're nibbling at, I want to try drop shipping, and I want to try crypto, and I want to try real estate wholesaling, and I want to try coaching. I mean, there's all these different ways that people can make money online these days that I feel like there's almost an overwhelming sense of information nowadays to feel like, all right, what is it that I really want to do in the entrepreneurial space, or or I want to do more of the traditional right. But I know I was actually talking today about being the one person in your family that forever changes the course of your family's history. And this is nothing new. This is not something I came up. I know Ed Milet talks about it quite a bit, and some other people talk about it as well. But being the one person in your family that makes a difference, and what is it that you're leaving behind, as your legacy. And by the way, legacy doesn't have to mean something that's financial legacy, right? Like you could be the one person in your family that goes to college, the one person in your family that lost 100 pounds in 6 months, or you can find whatever that is that works for you. But I know we talk about the different challenges that we faced, and I mean, speaking for me, I feel like one of my biggest challenges was probably coming to the States. I mean, I came here from Spain, and I knew very little people and had to figure it out and find work and find all these different things, and it was a challenge, right? But what would you say is some of your biggest or the biggest challenge that you've had to face that shaped the way you are?
Really and truly, the weight of knowing other people are counting on you. That's a very sobering thought. As we discussed offline, I said, my father, who had run our company, passed away in 2011, somewhat unexpectedly, short illness. And all of a sudden, everybody was looking to me because I was the only son.
Right.
And I was over here in the corner working, doing all my little things and enjoying life and entrepreneurial and all this thing, and all of a sudden the weight,
because everything is on you.
It's on me.
Yeah.
It's going to sink or swim whether or not I show up.
Right.
And so, in that moment, that's when I decided I had to get good at doing business.
Right.
And the only way I knew how to do that in that moment, remember, it's 2011, Facebook's only been out for 2 years. This isn't like, you've got everything at your fingertips and you can YouTube it all.
Sure.
I went to the library and I bought Good to Great.
Nice.
And I read Good to Great. And I started listening to Dave Ramsey had a podcast called Leadership, and I started listening to that, and that started giving me the nuggets and started turning me on to other people who were in great space. I mean, I started reading John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Yeah, Failing Forward.
He's got more books than I have teeth. So all that the gravity of knowing that others were counting on me.
Sure.
Brought some level of accountability to me to say, look, I've got to get better. I've got to get better than I am. It's not that I'm bad. I just have to get better. And I think so many people, you were talking about this, that they want to dabble here, they want to dabble there.
Yeah.
But if you really look at what champions do, they stay the course through every bit of challenge. You think about the Super Bowl or the World Series or the NBA championship, and the team that has reached the pinnacle and they're hoisting the trophy, they all say the same thing. This team has overcome so much adversity during the course of this season.
For sure.
And you're like, adversity, you're millionaires. What are you talking about? They go through a ton of adversity.
It's mental. Everything
injuries,
is mental. Yeah.
Chemistry.
Sure.
Challenges, things at home.
Yep.
There's so much adversity over the course of a season for every team.
Yeah.
It's the ones that overcome the adversity that get to hoist the trophy.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at starting a business, let's say it's Amazon dropshipping. If the first time you do it, you don't sell $1 million worth of widgets, there's your adversity.
Right.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Commit to it. We don't commit to things. It took me over a year when I decided to rewrite this book to actually get it to Amazon.
Yeah.
And it was because I kept getting in my own way. I kept getting distracted. I kept not putting the final touches on it. And let me tell you, you're gonna laugh. I sent it off to an editor. Remember, I'd already had my newspaper editors go through it. I sent it off to an editor, and they're like, look, the very first thing you need to do is put it through Grammarly, which is the app that checks the grammar and spelling. I'm like, okay. So I do it. I think I have a finished manuscript, and that sucker came back with 700 errors. You want to talk about adversity when you're trying to get something across the finish line?
Yeah.
And so I had to go through every one of those errors and make a decision of, is it a true error? Is it, they trying to reword things that are not true to my voice? Or is it an actual grammatical error?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. That took some time.
Probably half of it.
And I could have just quit and you know what? Screw it. Or I could have just said, you know what? I'm sending it out anyway. But I didn't. I went through the process. Everything worth having has a process that involves adversity.
Yeah. I love that. And honestly, too, this is something interesting, too, that I've talked to other people about. How do you feel like people, there's a fine line between sticking through adversity and this is something I'm never going to be good at? How do you figure out, hey, this is something, maybe I should switch gears towards something else, or this is something that I need to stick through and just kind of see the final result and stick out the adversity?
I would say that if you have a good coach or mentor in your life that's watching you try to progress in this direction, they can help you make that decision. But they don't always get it right.
Sure.
Michael Jordan's coach cut him when he was in the 10th grade.
Oh, wow. Really?
So that's not always the coach, but more times than not it is. Because, again, you can't see the picture from inside the frame. If you're sitting there just banging your head up against that brick wall and you're not even knocking out one brick,
right,
but you can't see it because you're so determined that you're going to break through this brick wall,
right,
sometimes you need that mentor to go, maybe this is not the right wall.
Right.
Now, I'm a believer that you can become serviceable in just about anything. I believe that I can play tennis if I've given instructions. Will I be, Wimbledon? No. I believe that
but
I
if
can.
you're very mind to it, you can,
I believe I could play the guitar.
Right.
If somebody sat down and taught me. Am I going to be Eddie Van Halen? No. So there are limits. You can become serviceable in just about anything. But if you hate it,
right,
because there has to be that desire. I love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to get better at it.
Right.
Then you have the impetus to really push through. But if
passion,
you're like, I have to make this work because I need the money.
Right.
That might not be the route for you. There's so, like you said, there's so many ways to make money.
Yeah.
And if, the average person, if they work an 8-hour shift, can make over $50,000 a year driving Uber. Okay? Yeah. I've run the numbers. I actually drove Uber a little bit this past summer for reasons. Basically, I was just trying to make a little extra money and do some research for a book.
Yep.
But can I tell you, the anxiety level for me as an introvert,
with
that person getting in and out of my vehicle, Uber's not the thing for me. Right. Can I do it? Yes. But if I hate it, go find a way to make $50,000 some other way.
Right.
Now, if you have to do it for a season until you can do that thing, I don't know if you're a Gary Vaynerchuk fan.
Yep.
So Gary V says that, work your 8 hours on the thing you hate, and then work another 8 hours on the thing you love,
right.
until the thing you love can outweigh the thing you hate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you don't know what you love, that's where those yeses come back into play.
Things, yeah.
Okay. You may say, okay, I love Amazon drop shipping, and here it'd be easy because we have the distribution centers right here. You could do Amazon, it's fulfilled by Amazon here. If you're doing it, you're getting the stuff, and you get really enjoying going to CVS and buying stuff on sale and then tagging it and taking it to the Amazon place and selling it online. You know what? Great.
Yeah.
You found something you love. Now it's working the system to figure out how you can make enough money at it.
Yep.
But if you're finishing your day at work and now it's like, oh my gosh, I got to go find stuff, or I got to get online and find stuff. I got to buy a pallet. I got to do. Maybe this isn't for you.
Right. There's no point.
Again, like the champion going through adversity.
Yeah.
Every successful person, with the possible exception of somebody who got famous or notorious, has spent an enormous amount of time in their craft.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Ramsey, again, go back to him, I guess maybe because he lives in Brentwood, but he said it took them 14 years to become an overnight success.
Right. It's really, truly.
Nobody, again, we see you where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Milet, who you mentioned.
Yep.
Ed Milet made his first fortune in financial services.
Right.
Building a team and building a company in financial services.
Yep.
He's famous now because he has everybody and their mama on his podcast. If you're somebody, you're on the Ed Milet show.
Yep.
And he's a great public speaker. But he honed all that skill set in financial services.
Right. Yeah.
So, find what you do, what you have to do now so you can do whatever you want to do later.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of that figuring out. And honestly, like, even if you had to spend a couple years or even a decade trying a multitude of things to see what you're good at, what you can love, and what supports your family. And I feel like there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are trying to become the next millionaire and the next whatever, right? Like, I feel like everything revolves around money sometimes, but there's a lot more that goes beyond that and what serves you and your family, and everybody has different goals of what that looks like. But having relationships that you cultivate and having the peace of mind, right, and the different things when you go about your day and doing something that you're really, really passionate about, sometimes it's even better than money. But like you said, Ed Milet trying financial services and going on public speaking and all these different things, and then just that applies to everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to figure out, navigate their way through what they're good at and their purpose. I feel like we talk about purpose a lot today, and I definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening, and definitely put it down in the comments. What gives you purpose? What's driving you to do what you're doing today, right? Like, I feel like that's something that we all reflect on a daily basis. And what's our purpose here? What are we leaving behind? If you have a family, right? The moment you have kids and a family, that purpose intensifies quite a bit. And so trying to figure out that purpose and what are you trying to accomplish and doing through what you're trying to do, that's incredible. So I definitely appreciate you coming on board here and chatting for a little bit, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Again, how do you pronounce your name? Specht? Specht. Okay. So David Specht, Old Dogs, New Tricks, best-selling author on Amazon. Check him out. Feel free to, we'll put the link in the description here so you can get a copy of that. And I appreciate you for being here. Any final words here?
Just stick to it. Go stick to whatever it is that you're doing. At some point, you're going to become the old dog in the office or in your circle. And when you reach the old dog status, don't think your time is over. You're just beginning, because you have a lot that you can share with others.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being
Absolutely.
here. We'll see you guys.
Love
See
you,
you next
brother.
time. All right. Sweet.